Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Nayasim. Hope you are great. So, I am seeing a video from a white woman. I didn't know where she was going to, but she saw, I think she's in Congress. She saw a picture of Charlie Kirk on somebody's door and decided to go into the person's door to ask the person question. And the question was questioning on a very good note. You know, so she decided to read Charlie Kirk's quotes to Republican members of Congress on their own offices. This video is like 22 hours ago. You can see, right? And I am like, it takes a whole lot of courage to do something like this. So she was asking them, how are you putting somebody who actually did not feel like, who did not feel like people that doesn't look like him do not have any right to be anything? Because I remember Charlie Kirk saying that it was a huge mistake to passing Civil Rights Act in the 1960s, right? So that was what he said. And then he talked about how women shouldn't work and how they should stay in their husband's house because a woman's duty is to stay back in the husband's house, raise children, and all that. So she also talked about how if you are great, right, as a woman, that abortion is not an option and all that. I mean, she read all that, and while she was reading it, she told them that I wanted to maintain eye contact. Let's know who is deceiving who. You know what? Let's get into this video.
You guys have a Charlie Kirk picture outside, so I thought I would just read you some of his best quotes that I personally find very touching. We'll start with this one. We made a huge mistake when we passed the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s. These are direct quotes. I'm not adding any words, okay? Women should not work, but instead serve their husbands and raise children. It's awkward, right? Let's sit in the silence of that for a second. If my 10-year-old daughter were raped and became pregnant, I would not allow her to have an abortion. You should look at me when I'm reading these to you.
Just taking notes.
Yeah, let's keep eye contact while I read you these uncomfortable quotes from the guy you idolize. Okay? He referred to transgender individuals, which are human beings, as a, quote, throbbing middle finger to God. Would God say that? I don't think God would say that. Birth control has created very angry and bitter young ladies, and women in their early 30s, they're past their prime. How old is Erica Kirk? The widow? Is she staying at home? Doesn't sound like it. Maybe she's with J.D. Vance. Abortion is our modern Holocaust. If a 6-week-old fetus is not alive, then what does abortion do to the fetus? That's like saying an 88-year-old with dementia isn't really alive. It's a great guy, right? It's a great man to idolize, to put on every other Republican door in our state capitol. A man who doesn't believe in the civil rights movement.
My favorite thing I ever saw of Charlie Kirk,
I saw that you guys have a Charlie Kirk picture outside, so I thought I would just read you some of his best quotes that I personally find very touching. We'll start with this one. We made a huge mistake when we passed the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s. These are direct quotes. I'm not adding any words, okay? Women should not work, but instead serve their husbands and raise children. It's awkward, right? Let's sit in the silence of that for a second. If my 10-year-old daughter were raped and became pregnant, I would not allow her to have an abortion. You should look at me when I'm reading these to you.
just taking notes.
Yeah, let's keep eye contact while I read you these uncomfortable quotes from the guy you idolize. Okay? He referred to transgender individuals, which are human beings, as a, quote, throbbing middle finger to God. Would God say that? I don't think God would say that. Birth control has created very angry and bitter young ladies, and women in their early 30s, they're past their prime. How old is Erica Kirk? The widow? Is she staying at home? Doesn't sound like it. Maybe she's with J.D. Vance. Abortion is our modern Holocaust. If a 6-week-old fetus is not alive, then what does abortion do to the fetus? That's like saying an 88-year-old with dementia isn't really alive. It's a great guy, right? It's a great man to idolize. You should look at me when I'm reading these to you. Yeah, let's keep eye contact.
Okay, this is a demonstration of white women showing courage, doing this shit in front of white men. Damn.
Charlie Kirk was a Nazi. He was a Nazi. There's a lot of white people right now are like, oh, he wasn't a Nazi. He wasn't like Nick Fuentes. There's no such thing as a diet Nazi, you guys. He was a Nazi. He was a man who said that women shouldn't be able to vote. He compared abortions to the Holocaust. He said that trans people who have mental health issues should not be allowed to exist. He said that black women don't have the brain power to operate a plane. That is not a difference of opinion. That is spouting racism, homophobia, and sexism. He was a racist, homophobic, sexist. He was a Nazi. And the reason that you see so many white people fucked up about this right now, and everybody's like, okay, but why can't they understand that George Floyd was a father, and there's children in Palestine dying, and what about the school shootings? They don't have sympathy for that. You must understand that generally with white people, and if you're a white person, stick around because you might learn something about yourself. There's internalized, subconscious racism. The racism they don't even realize they're doing. We're talking like these are people who at the store, they're in an aisle with an indigenous person and bumping into them and not even realizing it. These are people who are in a room with like a black person and they are, clutching their purse because they think they're going to get something stolen. These are people who, when they're in a room full of white people, they are actively going to be engaging with only the white people while not even seeing the minority individuals. It's societal, indoctrinated, subconscious beliefs that have come to us through the TV and other general messaging. When they hear about a minority, a woman, or a child getting shot or suffering, they're like, oh, those people. That's those people. That's not me. See, there's like people who are like Charlie Kirk, who is in culturally appropriated white Jesus's likeness, a white man. And even the women, the white women who are in this subcategory, like it's lost on them. Like they have internalized oppression and they don't even fully see themselves as people. They're centering men. So it's not going to do you any good to be like, well, how come you have sympathy for Charlie Kirk and you don't have sympathy for all of these other situations? They are not putting the two together. They have just realized for the first time that it could happen to them. And that's why they're freaking out.
Christian nationalism is just white supremacy cosplaying as a Bible study. And I talk about Christian nationalism a lot and how I think it's the biggest threat to our democracy right now. And I want everybody to know that Christian nationalists do not care about your freedoms and they do not care about human rights. And if you knew about the history of white evangelical Christian nationalists, you would understand why that's the case. I don't think a lot of people realize that the reason a lot of private Christian schools started popping up is because of the desegregation of public schools. They didn't like that so much that they decided to build up their own private Christian schools and not accept black students in the name of religious freedom. The founder of Liberty University actually made a school like this, Jerry Falwell Jr., and he would preach sermons about how God wants segregation. Bob Jones University also did this. They banned black students, and then after they started allowing black students, they banned interracial relationships and dating. And the only reason they went back on that is because the IRS was saying they could no longer be tax exempt if they were going to continue to discriminate. So they didn't go back on this because they changed their mind. It was only because they were no longer tax exempt. And I want it to really sink in that these schools started not because they wanted to teach these kids about the love of Jesus, but because they didn't want a black child sitting next to their white kid. The more history you learn about white evangelicalism, Christian nationalism, the more you realize how serious of a threat it is to our freedoms and human rights.
White Christian nationalism is both an ideology and an identity, but if you look at it through an esoteric lens, it is also an egregore. And in this video, I'm going to talk about why Christian nationalism in the United States is an egregore. So first, I'm going to go into defining what an egregore is. It is a collective psychic entity born from a shared belief, emotion, or ritual. So white Christian nationalism blends patriotism, racial identity, and religious identity into one umbrella. It asserts that America was founded by Christians and should remain a Christian nation. The belief is that God created manifest destiny, which was that America should be conquered and designated to white Americans. It marriages Christian and patriotic symbols such as flags, crosses, God and country, don't tread on me, and it has a hierarchical system of favoring white male Christian dominance. There's a skepticism of secular media, there's a skepticism and suspicion of multiculturalism, and there's a strict nostalgia for the past, where there feels like because there isn't this drive towards going in regressive ways, that they are in turn being persecuted due to the divine mission. So what is an egregore in practice or lived reality? An egregore has been built over centuries due to myths, rituals, and symbols, which could also go into the whole Adam and Eve, or Jesus, or cross, or patriotic oaths, and the flag. It all mixes in together when you come to white Christian nationalist ideals. It completely reinforces the idea of a sacred Christian nationalist ideal or identity, which is to remain sacred. And each of the symbols and slogans basically feeds into the egregore, or the spirit, or the entity, or the energy of that being in an emotional way, especially through fear, nostalgia, and righteous anger. So if you're someone who knows a little bit about egregores, you know that sometimes they can take on a mind of their own because they're not ruled within a physical body. They're not ruled within a spiritual body. It's more of a like idea, or a entity that like is formless but can still be received. The egregore operates individually from the individuals that are feeding into the egregore, because it rewards loyalty and belonging and moral certainty while defending itself through outrage, denial, and myth-making. It spreads mimetically through media, sermons, politics, and invokes a deep emotional response. So with an egregore, it is very important to be careful, because any ounce of energy that you send towards it, any ounce of energy that you feed into it, will make it stronger. So the thing is just removing yourself from the equation, removing yourself from the mindset, removing yourself from the ideology of white Christian nationalism. And the thing about white Christian nationalism is that it's so insidious, and that so many of us are indoctrinated into it without even knowing it. So think about the fact that we in Black churches have white Jesus on the wall. Think about the fact that Mormonism, Black people were not allowed in the church till 1978, 79. Think about how in the Pentecostal church, Black people are often treated as a token. If you are in a white evangelical space, you're treated as, well, you're one of the good ones. I'm saying that from personal experience. So ultimately, the only way to dissolve or transform it is with withdrawing collective belief, redirecting emotion and identity towards inclusive, pluralistic, and compassionate ideals. Otherwise, it continues to thrive as a perpetuating self-myth of divine entitlement and national purity and priority. When you are engaging with people who are very deeply entrenched in the white Christian nationalist ideal, it is very important for you to understand where they are coming from, and understand that you do not come from the same place, and that you cannot come from the same place, because if you do, it's more of a feeding into a system that does not benefit the majority. It benefits a small minority of people who feel like they have an entitlement to this country, when there's a whole plethora of people who live in it who do not ideally subscribe to those notions. So that's what I wanted to say about white Christian nationalism being an egregore. If you wanted me to dive in deeper into this, definitely let me know, because I can. But I just wanted to like get this feeling off of my chest, because it's been weighing on me for like days.
App disappears, I need to tell you about the biggest threat to our democracy, which is white Christian nationalism. Hi, I study the far right, and this is my area of expertise. The first thing you need to understand is that Christian nationalism is not a religion. It is a ethno-religious nationalism, but without theology. So it's a cultural framework for understanding who deserves power in America and who is a true American. The next thing you need to understand is that you do not have to be white to be a Christian nationalist, and you do not have to be a Christian to be a Christian nationalist. Survey results show us that even people who do not identify as Christians identify with the main tenets of Christian nationalism that we use to survey people to determine support for those. These are things like, do you support prayer in schools? Is America a Christian nation? Do you think that Christian values should be the center and the foundation for our laws. Christian nationalism is measured on a scale. So on the far left, we have people who completely reject it, and those are called rejectors. In the middle, we have resistors, people who are kind of not okay with it, but aren't as rejecting as the far end. We have accommodators, people who sort of support it in some ways, but not in all. And then on the far end, we have the ambassadors who are extremely pro, extremely in favor of Christian nationalism on every tenet. Christian nationalism began to become a powerhouse in politics when the new right and the religious right in the 1980s fused behind Reagan to really take over the GOP. About 2/3 of white evangelicals support Christian nationalism. They are the largest group that supports it. Black Protestants are actually very pro-Christian nationalism as well, but Whitehead and Perry distinguish between these two because when Black Protestants are very supportive of Christian nationalism, it leads them to be progressive in politics and to support measures that address societal problems, whereas when white evangelicals support Christian nationalism, it leads them to be very regressive and reactionary and exclusionary towards other groups in society. Gorski and Perry argue that Christian nationalism is tied to three main things, and that is freedom, order, and violence. Freedom is not the liberty for all in the Declaration. Freedom for them is the freedom to discriminate against other groups. So when you hear people hiding behind religious freedom to not give contraceptives through healthcare or discriminate against LGBT people in their business, that's the religious freedom that they're talking about. It also played out with COVID-19, right? The freedom to gather and become super spreader events. Order for them is a very strict hierarchy of who belongs, who should have power, and it is a white, heterosexual, patriarchal monstrosity that privileges Christians above all other groups. People were very confused by how strongly evangelicals threw their vote behind Donald Trump because he is so the opposite of family values and what they say that they believe about, he's been divorced 3 times. He's got all these hush payments to SEX workers, right? All of this bad stuff. And he's so horrendous, but they don't care because they have this rationale of oh, we're all sinners. Oh, we're all fallen. And he's being used by God to bring forth the kingdom of God on earth. This is a fundamentally apocalyptic ideology, and in that way it is extremely dangerous because they think in terms of we're engaging in cosmic war, which is the foundation for religious violence across the globe. And it's fundamentally anti-democratic because they are not tied to one person, one vote. They believe that they should be privileged above, which is why they're so supportive of undermining our democracy. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. And look out for Christian nationalism. They're very, very bad.
I know I might get a little flack for this, but I'm going to say it anyway because I've said it before. But Christianity and white supremacy are 2 different sides of the same coin. White supremacy is about racial superiority, while Christianity is about religious superiority. This idea that what I believe is better than what you believe, or what I'm saying or what I'm doing is right and what you're saying and what you're doing is wrong. And they've always gone together real bad. White supremacy and Christianity have always gone together real bad. They were literally burning crosses in front of Black people's houses that they were tormenting. And they were literally making these indigenous people abandon what they've always believed in for thousands of years prior to even coming in contact with these people and making them convert to Christianity. We cannot talk about Christianity without talking about the politics of Christianity, because religion is very much a political thing. It's very much about control. It's very much about keeping people in line. And if you want to live under spiritual oppression...
This is all I got from this video. This video hasn't been up to, it's 22 hours that they posted the video. And I think it's, I don't know how, I think the woman, oh, sorry about that. The woman was walking past, right, an office and saw Charlie Kirk's picture at the door. So she decided to go into the office and then met the people. I think it's a congress or something like that. So she decided to school them on Charlie Kirk's quote to Republican members of Congress in their own offices, telling them what that man stands for and why do they have his picture out there. The reality is that, like, I'm not going to lie to you, because to some people, I've even after his death, so they called him martyr. That is how stupid some people could be. Majority people think that are oppressing other people, because this is what I feel. It's okay. Feel free to feel what you feel. They think, they think oppressing people will take them to heaven. They think making people's life unbearable will make them martyr, because when that man was on earth, sincerely speaking, he never made life easier for anybody that is not from his. If you are not from his side, you do not deserve to live. You do not deserve to have anything good. You do not deserve to like be around them, right? And immediately something happened to them. And the worst part is that whatever that happened to him was from another man from his own side that is a Christian national, wherever they are, because that was a Christian. And you remember that time they said they were praying so that it wouldn't be someone that looked like them, so that they would tell the person how they do it in United States of America. So what they were waiting for was to pray that it would be a black man or a brown person or an immigrant that, like, visited. Sorry. But it didn't happen that way. It happened that it was one of them. So you could hear her read the things he believed in, right? So to him, he did not feel like, Civil Rights Act should have been passed and all that, In the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1960. So to him, that was the biggest mistake that they made, that we would have kept them as whatever they are, or maybe slaves. It would have kept them as slaves. They wouldn't have right to vote and do other things. They also wouldn't have right to go to school. Like, they should all remain in the kitchen, because the majority of them believe that a woman's place is in the kitchen. Most Christian nationalism and all that, whatever they call themselves, this is what they believe. They do not believe that you also should have right to vote. That is also one of the reasons. So I think one of the videos I made yesterday, I was talking about how there is need for people that already changed their names to their husband's name. If your name is, for example, Jacqueline Evans, right? And you got married, you change your name from Jacqueline Evans to maybe Jacqueline Matthew, you may not be able to vote. So I don't know if there is a way you can change your name back to your father's name. If it's possible, do it as soon as possible. I have talked about this several times, about how they are planning that if your name is not the same as from the birth you will not be able to vote, because these people have plans. So look for a way to change it back, because they are already working overtime. When you go to sleep as a black man who do not have anything in mind, they do not sleep, because they want to keep you at a place. They do not want you to move. I have never seen where you do not like somebody, you also do not want to let that somebody go. You must be a witch, or it's either you're a witch or a wizard. This is how I feel. So I love the fact that she checked them out. It takes a lot of courage. I commend her, whether she is performing or not. It takes a lot of courage for someone to tell. Let's maintain eye contact. This is the kind of person you want to advertise, or the kind of. See, I am not going to lie to you, but some people are extremists. You can imagine waking up to go and put one person's picture on my door. Who are you? What have you done to the world that will make me put your picture? Like, if I wake up or if I'm going out, I'm seeing your picture. Say no more. Great job to her. White Christian nationalism is equivalent to quote white supremacy because that is what they push out. I will draw my curtain here. Bye.